Erin, hi.
Hi, Pete.
Where are we tonight?
We're in the clinic at Parramatta Gaol.
Welcome to On Location. Okay, so the clinic. Now, surprisingly, this building doesn't look very old, does it?
Not really.
It's not old. It's not. It was built in the 1970s. But what's really great about it, apart from the fact that it was a clinic, so there were deaths and very ill people in here, is that it was built on the grounds of the original male hospital.
Yes.
So
It's had a life.
It's had a life. It's had a life. And if they say the theory that the grounds hold their own paranormal experiences, then these grounds definitely do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Before we start, I believe Erin has a little thing she wants to say to correct something from last episode. Is that correct, about your candles?
Yeah, so I've had time to have a bit of a play with the candles. They're not EMF detectors. They're actually detect changes in the magnetic field around them, much like the dead bell. The dead bell operates in the same way. It uses a magnetometer. One's already turned itself off. They do turn themselves off and turn themselves back on with changes in the atmosphere.
Yeah, so when we had that happen to us in the chapel...
It's just gone back on.
When we had that happen to us in the chapel in the last episode, we thought that it was a mistake. We thought it might have been a fault in the device, but no.
No, it's just registered a change.
And it was on Lenny's side.
It was, actually, in the pew that he likes to hang around with.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sorry, I just heard a weird noise, but I think it might have been a car. Okay, so the chapel. We've had so many experiences in here. To be honest, we don't use the chapel, not the chapel, the clinic. Cut. So the clinic. To be honest, we don't use the clinic that much, mainly because there are so many places that we can investigate when we have our guests join us, and normally the guests would rather naturally go to the wings. So to be honest, we don't really use the clinic that much, but we have used it in the past, and we have had a variety of experiences. I had a very significant experience that actually happened in this doorway. So it was on a night where I had just taken some guests down to 1 and 3 wing, and as I was walking past, there's 2 entrances to this clinic. As I was walking past the entrance down that end, I heard a noise. So I stuck my head inside and I shone my torch. And in this doorway behind us, there used to be, you know, like those heavy plastic hospital curtains where they're like strips of but they're that really heavy plastic.
Yeah.
There was one of them hanging. And as I shone my torch, the curtain dropped as if someone had been holding it aside. It dropped. And then it swayed a little bit, so it had been parted and it dropped, and I fled because back then, like this is going on at least 10 years ago, I was petrified. I was like, no fucking way. Now I'd be in here wanting to know, trying to get some responses. So that was the first thing that ever happened to us in this clinic. But since then, we've had, there's a buzzer right here. We actually have a room that was an observation room for ones who were too dangerous just to be in an ordinary room. So it's got the bars and everything from it. It's got little circle windows so the staff could look at them. And there's a help button on the wall. We've had that go off with no one in there.
Oh, wow.
We've had...
I don't know if the camera's picking that up. Yeah.
I was just about to say footsteps, and then there was 2 footsteps.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's really loud.
Yeah, that's freaked me a little bit. We had the lights turn off one night, like a switch actually flicked off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was, of course, while we were setting up.
Yeah.
It wasn't, of course, wasn't during our vigil with the customers. Have you had any experiences in here?
So I've had one that was I got on EVP.
Oh, right.
And I, again, set up, as we were setting up, I was testing the recorder more than anything. And there was a whole lot of us in here, and we were sort of just setting up, and we got shushed twice. We were making a lot of noise, and I call that the matron. I don't know if it is, but it came across as like a bossy, this is a clinic, this is sick people, you need to be quiet, you need to have some, so I kind of thought that was pretty cool.
It's quite funny that you say that, because I posted on our Facebook page and on our Instagram about my experience with the curtain, and we had a comment from someone who said, that's the matron.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the matron.
I just made that up. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that she's cranky and she doesn't like noise. I don't like this door right next to me. I'm just going to say that right now.
I don't like that I'm sitting with my back to this either. But I think that candle has been going on and off.
Oh, there we go. It's just gone off again. There's also a cat ball right under the wheelchair.
So none of them have gone off tonight. Really odd.
Well, they normally do, don't they? They normally, her cat balls are...
Yeah. They're really... Usually we get some activity with them, but not tonight. That's interesting. The tripwire's been a bit silent too, so we'll see how we go as we progress through the podcast. But one of the things I like to do in here is a lot of eerie work, which is because they've got, obviously they were set up for all sorts of things. There's drug dispensaries in here, which would have been locked down really, really seriously. They would have taken that very seriously. Wouldn't want that to get out into the prison population. There would have been suicide attempts. There would have been people on suicide watch in here, people who have hurt themselves or been hurt by others. So there's some pretty interesting energy around this building.
Yeah, well, how about you do a eerie right now?
We could, couldn't we?
Yeah, let's give it a go.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, matron, are you here? Matron, we need some assistance. We have a prisoner here who's in a very bad way.
Did you just hear that sound like a snippy?
What was that?
It sounded like it came from that room.
Was I just being shushed?
Oh my god. I hope that was picked up.
It sounded like it came from
It did sound like it came from in there, and that would have been like the staff's room.
Yes, because the drug dispensary.
Yeah, the drug dispensary is there. The peepholes to look into this room is right here.
Sorry, matron, I didn't mean to be so loud.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Oh my gosh.
God, I hope that came up.
When I first recorded it years ago now, it's been a long time, I got shh, like, ooh. That was loud.
I hope these sounds are getting picked up.
Jeez.
Yeah. So we're trying to think of prisoners who we could definitely associate with.
I heard that. I don't even know where that came from.
With the clinic. And one that came to mind was a prisoner called Ray Denning. And Ray Denning he wasn't ever in the clinic, but he was involved in building this building. So in the 1970s. Now, should you talk about Ray's history first, or will I say what happened at the jail first, and then you can go into...
I might just talk about his early life. Yeah. There's a lot that's been written and spoken and recorded about Ray. He's pretty famous, isn't he? He was, I think, probably most wanted number 2. I think he was a real
gorgeous too.
He was quite good, actually. But his early life is what I've been sort of very interested in looking into, and I mean, you couldn't have a worse start to life. And I guess a lot of prisoners could have this backstory, don't they? But with Ray, he was one of 2 children. He and his sister Charmaine lived with his mother and his father. It was
down the Wollongong area, wasn't it? Like
Mount Kembla, I think. I want to say Mount Kembla. His father was Jack Denning, Jack the Hat or something. But he was also a criminal, and he was an incredibly violent man, and he did a stint in jail, and Ray's mother divorced him, moved on to another relationship. So they were all living together, and somehow as he was about to come out of jail, he got a message to his ex-wife, Ray's mother, that he was going to come and get her. And she must have been absolutely terrified. And she actually committed suicide, but in one of the worst ways you could imagine, and in a very unusual way for women. She set fire to herself and burned to death in front of 10-year-old Ray.
I read that he was found trying to douse the flames.
Yeah, there's a lot that's been said. What's interesting, I read something attributed to him where he is meant to have said, she didn't scream and I didn't cry. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is just, But then I watched recently some footage of his sister being interviewed about that night, and she tells a very, very different story.
Right.
So it's hard to know if he was saying that to kind of protect himself and shield himself from what happened, which you could imagine. I couldn't imagine seeing a parent do that. She must have been absolutely petrified. And this was a time where women really couldn't expect help from the police with DV, could they? You were really on your own. So he's been raised in an environment where he's witnessing violence, he's exposed to violence, and then he watches his mother destroy herself in front of him. What's awful about that night too is they were locked into the house. They had lost the key. So as she was burning, she was moving through the house trying to put herself out, and she was setting the house on fire, and they were trapped in there with her. So needless to say, you could not imagine. I couldn't imagine a worse start to life. So he went in and out of, the children were split up and they never lived together again, which is another tragedy. He went to live with some relatives, but also ended up very, very quickly in foster care and in foster homes, and then he was homeless. By the time he was 13, he was homeless. Before that, though, he went through the usual rigmarole of children's court systems. Now, back then, the Sydney Children's Court was infamous for, and it was shut down, and it was reviewed, and it was found to be very problematic and created more criminals than it actually helped. So in a system that should have been doing a lot to divert and treat, it was doing none of those things. He also ended up for some time in the Penang, Mount Penang Children's Home up on the Central Coast, which is notorious. And interestingly, his father spent time there as well in his youth. And that place was an absolute haven for physical and sexual abuse of the boys. There was a strike force years later, and it resulted in a number of arrests, including the ex-mayor of Gosford.
Oh my God.
Yep. So, and he says not a lot about that. He's very guarded at what he says, but he says basically that was some of the worst experiences of his life, was being in that home. So that gives you a bit of a foundation for what Ray was and what he was to become. Yeah.
So Ray came here in 1972 to Parramatta Gaol for robberies, and I think he was sentenced to something like 13 years in prison. Then by 1974, he wanted out. So he and 3 other inmates decided to concoct an escape plan. They had been put on a work site of working on the construction of this building. So I don't know if they had anything to do with the demolition of the old clinic, but they definitely were working on the construction of this building. And they had a civil contractor who was brought in. His name was Willy Faber, and he was brought in to train inmates, give them life skills, give them some job skills. And he'd taken these 4 blokes and was teaching them construction work. But they decided to take advantage of him, take advantage of their position, and one day they just grabbed a ladder that was on the construction site, and they grabbed some tools, and they ran across to the wall near the chapel, put the ladder against the wall and started climbing. Now, poor old Willy Faber saw all of this happen, The guards in the tower couldn't see from their viewpoint. They couldn't see what was happening. They could hear the commotion.
Yeah.
They couldn't actually see what was happening to shoot. So Willy chased them and got to the ladder and, yeah, I'm telling your story, Ray. Got to the ladder and Ray then bashed the shit out of Willy Faber's head with a claw hammer.
Gosh.
To the point where the poor man's brains were falling out of his head. Once that happened and the attempted escapees were subdued, they were taken and Ray Danning left Parramatta, and I think he was sent firstly to Long Bay and then finally to Grafton, where he escaped. He became the first prisoner to ever escape Grafton.
Yeah, that was not an easy feat.
No, he also had some of hiding him because he was a spunk. I heard that whistle or something.
I have no idea. It came again.
Did it come from anywhere? I thought it came from the wheelchair.
Oh, wouldn't that be creepy if that wheelchair?
This is exactly why we're doing it on location.
Yeah.
It's exactly why we aren't just sitting in a room talking. We're sitting in the paranormal haunted hotspots. What was I saying? He was taken to Grafton.
He was taken to Grafton and he escaped.
Yeah. 4 years after, we'll talk about the Grafton thing later. 4 years after the attack, poor old Willy Faber passed away, and it was definitely attributed to his injuries. He was never the same again. He developed epilepsy. He was having strokes. He was just, it just ruined him. And he's actually acknowledged every year on the correctional officer roll of prisoners who've died correctional officers who've died on the job. But because he died 4 years after the attack, Ray couldn't get charged with his murder. He was only charged with malicious, whatever it was.
Charge.
But Ray became quite well known for prisoner reform, didn't he?
He did. Interestingly about him, because I don't think he had much of a schooling history. His life was so chaotic and so disrupted in that sense, but he was a very articulate man and he was very vocal about prison reform. He's known to have kept a log of all of the beatings that the prisoners got, and this was a time in the prison's history where guards basically believed in laying the boot in.
Yeah, they could do whatever they wanted. There was no repercussions.
Yeah. And Grafton was particularly known for that, that, if you were sent there, you knew you were probably going to have at least 2 weeks initiation of being beaten daily by the guards. And some of the ex-prisoners talk about being beaten unconscious. So it was horrific treatment. But he was very vocal and quite articulate. Whenever I've seen footage of him talking about that and being interviewed, he's very articulate and he's quite, you can tell he's got some anger issues.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly he does, but he's very articulate and calm about it all as well.
A lot of noise behind us.
Yeah,
So he died suspiciously as well.
Very suspiciously.
It was in 93, was it?
Yeah. So there's a couple of really interesting things about that. He became an informant.
He got sick of the prison life, got sick of the drama and the politics, and he just gave in.
He really did, and he'd had quite a few attempts at escape, as we've kind of demonstrated. And I think suddenly he had this carrot dangled that he could turn informant and they would give him leniency, and that's exactly what happened. He ended up getting out and he turned informant, and that basically, there was a
I heard he informed on everyone that he basically ever met.
And people really couldn't believe that because he had been so vocal about this terrible system, and he had he'd always been for the prisoner and for prisoners' rights and reforms in the system, that he would turn dog, as they say. So he had a bit of a target on his back. He was put into the witness protection scheme. He was given a new name. He was moving into an apartment with his girlfriend, And around the time that he was being released, there was massive media, political and social pressure to basically suspend the witness protection scheme because it was incredibly expensive. And Ray was under 24/7 surveillance, which was, horrendously expensive. So they dropped it. He was actually, the Queensland police were furious with New South Wales because they were waiting on his evidence for a case that they had up there. And he said, I'm dead, I know I'm dead. And within a month he was. Now, his death went to a correctional sort of hearing, and then it also went to an inquest. At the time that he was found with a sort of they thought initially it was a heart attack. It wasn't. He had toxic levels of heroin in his system, so it eventually got deemed to be a heroin overdose. What's interesting about that, I can hear that, is the coroner said, look, I accept that he was a drug user, but he was not a habitual user of heroin. Now, what that tells me is his body bore none of the marks of really serious IV drug abuse, which is quite, track marks, collapsed veins, all of that. But at the time that his body was found, they were talking about these unusual puncture marks, and people were saying, that his lawyer was really vocal about it, saying he had needle marks in his back. Oh. And then the police came out and said, no, nothing to see here. And then unnamed police forces came out and said, yeah, it's really unusual. These marks were there and they were very unusual. Basically, the dust has settled. What seems to be kind of an accepted thing is he was given a hot shot, which is a lethal dose of very, very, very strong opiate that his system could not handle. Was he given it and did he self-administer it, or did somebody hold him down, or even in his sleep, jab him in the back? We don't know, but he was dead within a month. And yeah, obviously a lot of cases fell over as a result of the star witness not being able to give evidence anymore.
That candle's going berserk.
It is going nuts, isn't it? Ray, are you here? Or is Willy here? Was it Willy? Willy Faber?
Willy Faber.
You can bang on the
Willy Karl Faber.
Make the bell ring.
Have you got the music box on?
I have not.
Oh, right.
Hang on, I'll go to turn it on.
No,
it's in another room. I forgot to turn it on. So that's a really, really interesting postscript to a very, very violent and horrible life. That, the minute he sees freedom, he didn't see it for very long. And I don't think he had a very peaceful life at all.
No. And he might be with us here tonight.
He might be.
Or it could be the matron.
He's gone quiet.
Wondering why these two weird women are sitting in the hallway talking to a camera.
But his life of crime is the stuff of legend, and just the violence that was within him. It's
like father, like son, to be honest.
I agree. And also, when we go through the backstory, we're not making excuses. There's no excuse for that. There are people that experience this and they don't go on to commit violent crimes. It's just not.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
What an interesting night we've had.
It's been incredible.
The bell hasn't gone. I think I've turned the bell on. I think it's on. We've had.
I just wish what was that?
Oh, that was weird.
What was that?
Was that down there?
Was that like a scraping sound?
Sounds like something dragged. You hear that? That's loud, but that sounded like something being dragged. Well, this jail tonight is really violent. I'm actually a bit jumpy in here tonight, and I'm usually, this is a bit like the chapel for me. It's usually really calm in here.
Yeah.
That was a dragging, like,
Can you repeat this sound?
That sounded like a voice.
I didn't hear what it said though.
It's too faint. I can
hear that laughing?
I can definitely hear a voice down there. I'm just trying to. Oh, but candles just lit up. Hello. Wow.
All right, guys. Well, that's another episode of On Location.
Oh, that was. That made me jump.
And was that a whistle as well?
That might have been my mouth just making a bit. She's happening. Thank you. Are we being a bit loud, matron? I think we've been a bit loud tonight.
It seems to be coming from that room and behind us.
And down that dragging, definitely. I thought that came more from the front door.
All right, maybe we should just record.
My heart is bumpy.
I'm just feeling very vulnerable.
I don't like this.
I like to have my back against something.
And I'm more worried about there. I keep looking. You might have seen me occasionally looking. I'm more nervous about there than I am there behind me.
Yeah.
That's because there's actually a series of rooms.
Both of them.
You've got everything. But I can see there's a doorway through there that opens up into a series of rooms that leads around to where the drug box was, and that's kind of the start of a bit of a rabbit warren.
Yeah.
So it's really creepy down there. And I keep looking, and it's making me nervous. The brave paranormal investigator.
I know, there's also like a metal plate. You know when you push on a door, they have that metal plate.
Yeah.
There's a metal plate down the end. And there's a bit of light from the tripwire. Oh, what the fuck was that?
Oh my God.
Seriously, what the fuck was that?
Oh, this is really intense. Front door, or was it a side door?
Was the door fully closed? I don't even remember. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. I
want to laugh. That was
it might have been a bit open and it's just closed. But why?
It's not windy.
It's not really. It's not raining. It's not. There's no real weather tonight. It's a bit cold. All right, that is loud. That was footsteps. So it's coming from, we're just copying it from both ends.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm actually going to have to stop looking in there. It's wrecking.
I know.
That was loud. Holy cow.
Can you do that again? Open up the door. Did you hear that?
I did hear that. It's a voice.
It's really soft. I'm hoping that it gets picked up on our microphone.
Matron, is it you? Are you annoyed that we're in here? I mean, we're literally blocking the corridor.
Yeah, we are blocking the corridor.
She might be really annoyed at that even. I can't look at me.
I know.
I keep going to look, I can't. I'm just gonna,
Do you need a cup of coffee?
I think I need a cup of coffee.
I think you need a cup of coffee.
Thank you for joining us, but we're a little bit freaked out actually.
It's not that we're scared, we just really need a cup of coffee. We're fine.
I need a double shot coffee and I can't.
Yeah, see, I just thought I saw light at the window.
I'm not even.
I don't want to look. All right.
Thank you.
See you next time, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.